And we're live. Hello, friends. Welcome to Thursday Night Card Class with CJ Card Creations. My name is Christy Hillock. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I'm located in Salt Lake City, Utah. I am so glad that you're here, whether you're catching me live or watching the replay. Make sure you drop a comment so that I know that you're here. I'm just going to get started, give you a few minutes to find me and go over a couple of things. First and most important thing is that any of the things I talk about will be in my weekly emails. So if you want to receive that, and that will also include all of the dimensions for tonight's project, make sure that you click the link that I'll put in the description afterwards and subscribe to my emails. And then if you would actually like to receive kits to make the 3 Leaves of Holly cards that I'm sharing in November Facebook class, then make sure that you place a $35 order in my online store. And there's a host code that I'll put up for you. And the deadline for that is November 30th. And then I think I've mentioned the Fitting Florets collection. But if you order that through my online store, then you will receive a kit to make 5 cards with that collection. So I think that's a really great deal. I've got just a couple of classes coming up. So on December 10th, I'm doing my final Christmas class. Hey, Janie, I'm glad you're here. So that class is called Tags and Bags. So hopefully that's pretty clear what we'll be making. No cards, because if you haven't mailed your cards by then, maybe not going to. So we will instead be making tags and different kinds of containers to hold little gifts. Thank you for sharing. So that is again on December 10th, and you leave with all sorts of product as well as completed projects and a lot of fun. So I also have my regular Monday night card class coming up on November 21st. And so make sure that you're coming for that if you're local. And I think that's really it. Today's the last day for the From the North Pole paper pumpkin kit. And that coordinates with last month's paper pumpkin, but this month's is all tags. So it makes 12 tags, and it looks like it's going to be really fun. So it's got some glimmer paper and some die cuts. And so if you are not already subscribed for paper pumpkin, hop on and get that taken care of so that you make sure that you've got those tags coming to your mailbox. And I think I can go ahead and switch my camera so that we can get started. So let's do that. And again, this is the Leaves of Holly stamp set that we'll be using through this entire month. And I'll go ahead and show you the card that I made last week. Was really quite simple, but we did a little bit of 2-step stamping. We used some foil and these festive pearls, and I think that this card just turned out so nicely. So if you haven't already seen that project, make sure that you look for it on my YouTube channel or just scroll back in my Facebook page. Hey Mom, thanks for being here. Okay, let's see if I can unbury some stuff. I swear I had cleaned, and then I cut, I've got a Christmas Stamp-A-Stack this Saturday, and I cut all of the projects for that and made a huge mess. And yeah, then we've been sick and just nothing has gone as expected. These are the 5 projects that you will be able to create with your Fitting Florets collection and what I will send you. And what I send is always pre-cut, pre-scored, any of the dies that you would need that aren't part of Fitting Florets. I do that die cutting for you, and then you just have to cut your designer series paper. So I think that class is really pretty, and that's it. That's all I got. So let's get started. So this beautiful card is what we're going to make tonight. So I think this is called a book fold. It's really simple, but it does just change it up quite a bit. So let's figure out where all of our pieces are. because apparently I cut all the pieces, but I was really clever and didn't actually cut a card base. So we'll just do that. The card base for this is Cherry Cobbler, and it is a 4.5 by 11-inch piece of cardstock. And then I will show you how I scored it. So nothing done to this piece yet. I'm just going to bring in my Stampin' Trimmer and get that cutting blade out of the way. And I'm going to score this at 4.5 and at 5.5. And that's it. That's the only thing that's different about this whole deal. So I can go ahead and burnish these score lines. And this one's actually going to fold back on itself. I'm glad you like the card. It's really not a very difficult card, but anything with gold is just really flashy. So I feel like if you're not going to use all of your golds and silvers at Christmas, then you may never get to use them. So here we go. All right, the next thing that we're going to do, so I used the Lights Aglow Designer Series paper for this, and this pattern is a little bit different from the one that was on my original sample, but it's still very similar and really pretty. So this piece is, let's see, I'm looking at my measurements. So we need to start off with it being 4 1/8, which is what it is. And then we're going to cut it down to 5 1/4. And I'm going to tell you why I'm doing it this way. If I start with one piece, then my height is the same for the two pieces instead of chopping different. And then this way my pattern is consistent as well. So now I'm just going to trim off and you know what, I'm just going to check really fast and make sure that I actually, yeah, that is really 4 1/8. Okay, so I'm going to trim off 7/8 of an inch right here. And Janie, you're so funny. All right, so we can go ahead and adhere these pieces. And for my DSP, I sometimes prefer seal just because it doesn't leave it wet to where, it kind of wrinkles a little bit. So that's what we're doing today. All right, get that on there nicely. And then just a little bit there. And then we'll make sure that the top and bottom line up properly. And there's that. And now I'm going to bring in my liquid glue. So sometimes when I've done this fold, I have wrapped ribbon around this little section, but today we're just going to glue closed because there's enough else going on that I didn't want to tie something there. So go ahead and do that. And okay, let that dry for a minute while we do a little bit of stamping. So I believe that I used just the larger. Let's see if that's true. So the large one, it looks like maybe I actually did the small one as well. I am using the more detailed stamp for this just so that we get a little better image of the leaves. I've got some blocks over here somewhere, so we'll just get these on. And now when I am doing heat embossing, I want to try to do all of my stamping in one go and then do all of my embossing at once. So we'll see how that works out for us today. But I'm going to bring in just a square of designer series paper, of basic black, sorry. And then I do just want to make sure, yes, this is a true square. And we'll get our Versamark. Mine is a little bit dirty, but it doesn't make any difference when you're stamping. So we'll get those nice and inked up, and then just going to stamp there, and then re-ink the littler one and go just like that. So before I do any gold sprinkling, and you know what, I just realized that I completely forgot to do the embossing buddy, and it's gonna be fine. So if we decide we don't like it, we can always flip it over, but usually it works out okay. So just my gold powder here. This is not the stylish way of doing this because I didn't buy the new kit that was in this mini catalog that has the tray, but I find that the coffee filter works great because it doesn't get staticky, and I've had issues with that with other brands of those plastic trays. So, all right, I think that's looking pretty good. So before you turn on your blower, the heat tool, you just want to clean up the powder so it doesn't end up all over the craft room. And Janie, I'm glad I'm not the only one. I think that conceptually it's brilliant, but I don't know. And I have heard some people say that if you rub your embossing buddy over the tray, that helps as well. But yeah, that's, again, extra effort. So we're just going to keep using that coffee filter. Oh, something just went flying. Okay, so I like to heat up my heat tool before I actually point it at my cardstock, because if you run the heat tool on your cardstock for too long, it can actually burn the cardstock or burn the powder, and the paper will start to warp. So now I think we've probably got it heated up enough. And I want to make sure that you can see the magic, because this is one of the best parts of the stamping, is just doing the heat embossing. So, and remember, if you want the measurements for all of this, I will send them out in a PDF with my Monday email. And I realized this week that I didn't include that in this week's email, so I'm going to have to make up for that. I apologize if you've been looking for it. This head cold, it's not COVID, but it's enough to make me not quite on my A game. So you see how that just got all beautiful and shiny? So love it. All right, and then this is going to just mount directly onto a slightly larger square of shaded spruce. So we will bring in some liquid glue here. And one thing that I don't think of doing very often is stamping on my designer series paper. And certainly I never think to stamp and emboss on my designer series paper, but that is actually what we are going to do for the sentiment on this card. So once we get this all settled, that should be good. And I didn't even pop anything up on this project. I just decided it didn't need it. So got some cherry cobbler with gold designer series paper, and I am just going to, let's see, okay. Oh, I swear, I move things and then I can never find them. It's so frustrating. So I'm one of those people that, like, I've got the most horrible pile on my desk, but I know exactly where things are, you know, until I move it, and then it's just, it's end of the game. So have you guys started making and sending your Christmas cards yet? I obviously have been making plenty, but I have yet to even look at who is on my list and how many I need or anything like that. So it's about time to get going because I do feel like time is going very fast, and I really don't appreciate that because I need more time. So Emily asked today if we could decorate for Christmas. I was like, wait a minute, we always wait until after Thanksgiving to decorate for Christmas, but I don't know, she kind of made it sound fun, so who knows? We might have some Christmas decor going soon, and since I never really did anything for Halloween, I guess maybe I owe it to her to be a little more festive. Oh, good. I'm glad you finished the Christmas ones. I think they, Stampin' Up! Just really does such a nice job. All right, so I want to make sure that this is centered and straight, and we're going to hope that that is where I wanted it because it is a little bit harder to see when it's got a pattern going. And then I use black more, so that's why it has its own little container, whereas the gold doesn't. This is just a dollar store container, and it actually just about killed me to dump into this and throw away the original package, but I really like the way this works. So I'm going to show you a trick for this as well because the heat tool is actually quite hot and I don't really feel like burning my fingers. So this little reverse tweezer is part of that bundle in the catalog. So you can just hold it and then that allows you to get your fingers a little bit further away. Let's see, try to figure out how to do all this so that I don't burn things, but you can see what I'm doing. So get this going. There it is. And the shine and the littlest bit of texture just makes such a difference. I don't know, it's just so fun. So there is that. And now we can, oh, I was gonna glue it all together, but that's why this is here. I need to die cut first. So I'm going to bring in my dies, and I think that this set actually comes with another branch like this that I seem to have misplaced. So we're just going to run this through the machine twice and be grateful that I don't lose dies very often. I was really sad though because I lost it before I did all the die cutting for this class on Saturday, and let me just tell you, apparently I liked these dies when I was designing, so that was unfortunate. So we'll just, sorry, it shakes it so bad. And then we'll pop this out and see what we've got. And sometimes you can just drop it and it will pop out. And sometimes that doesn't work. So I'm going to bring back in my little reverse tweezer and just pop it out like that. Maybe. Oh my gosh. You know, it's just one of those days. There we go. All right, so we'll do that one more time. And I'm glad you're liking the gold on black. It's a little bit dark for traditional Christmas, but I think certainly it makes it feel really special. All right, so I like to store my plates halfway through my machine because sometimes that helps with warping. So just a little tip there. And we'll free this little die cut from the die And now we can put everything together. So Janie, I started on the Ho 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 kit and I love it, but it is definitely not as simple as some of them are. And so I didn't get terribly far before I got pulled away. So I'm glad you said that because I need to get back to it because the cards in it are adorable. And then I had gotten, of course, can't think what it's called right now, but there is a tag kit that is not Paper Pumpkin. It's just part of the regular kit collection. And the kit itself is gorgeous. And then what they did was give us little die cuts that pop, like you use the negative of the image. So I have all these little deer heads and I can't remember, Christmas trees, something else that are really cute that I need to figure out what to do with because I can't just let those go to waste. So yeah, if only there was more time. Joe teased me with possibly taking the kids to grandma's this weekend. And then wouldn't you know, we got snow and the ski resorts are opening. I guess Brighton and Solitude opened today, which I find incredibly rude. And so now they're going skiing instead of going to grandma's. So they're probably happy. I am glad I won't be alone, but sad that I don't get my solo time. All right, so I'm bringing in this Simply Elegant trim, and I have used this a lot this year. It's a little fiddly in terms of getting the bow to tie and hold nicely, but once you get it locked in, it's gorgeous. So we'll just snip that off of there and grab a glue dot to put this on. And then we just have a little bit of stamping for the inside because you can't go to all this work for the outside and not make the inside special too. So before I do that though, I am going to get some festive pearls because these are beautiful and amazing. And if you don't have them, you need to stop everything and go order at least 3 packs because they are just that wonderful. But they are gold and silver and then softly succulent and cherry cobbler. And so I love them. I have used these a bunch as well. And I think the fact that the soft succulent, is just a nice light color, it will keep these being useful longer than I feel gold and silver are. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents. So we'll just pop these little guys on here like so. I think that's pretty well distributed there. And put that up later. Okay, so now I've got just a basic white card liner, and it's almost too bright, because there's not any white anywhere on the front, but there really isn't another option. It must be the card for next week, but I actually used a different color for the card liner, and I'm still not sure that it was the right choice, but it just made more sense than white. So anyway, we'll see what you think next week. Okay, so first I'm going to bring in my shaded spruce ink and get the larger holly leaf all inked up. So there is that one. And then, once again, there we go. All right, I'm going to clean this and clean the other sentiment so that we can mount up the inside sentiment, because one thing that's really nice about this stamp set is that it does have kind of like the outside greetings and then the inside greetings. So this one is just going to be, if I can figure out which one it is, from our home to yours. I'm just going to use my smaller block, and I think I've shown you before, but I really think it is much easier to get this to sit properly if I line it up on my grid paper and then just pick it up with my block. So bring this down now and get my cherry cobbler ink. And if you haven't ever paid much attention, photopolymer stamps will stain with especially the red-based inks, and it's fine. It doesn't affect how well they work or anything like that. So just in case you notice that as you are doing some of this stamping, it's totally fine. So, and I just use my very stained Simply Chamois in a stamp case to always have something at hand to clean with. So we can mount this up here, and we are finished. So definitely this one is a little bit more involved than last week's, but still so accessible. I just think it's really, really beautiful. So I hope that you like this as well. And just as a reminder, if you want to receive kits to make all 3 of the Facebook class projects for November, make sure that you do go over to my online store and, let's see, can you hear me? I might have hit the wrong button. Nope, we're good. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, go over to my online store, place that $35 order with the host code that I'll pop into the description here. And then, thank you. It warned me that it had removed my sound, but I don't know. Anyway, so, and then make sure that you are on my email list. If you're not already, I will send out last week's card PDF and also this week's. So I am so grateful that you are here. Don't forget that it's your last chance to get that From the North Pole paper pumpkin kit tonight. And then they'll have something new and exciting for us tomorrow. So I have not looked yet to see any sneak peeks or anything. So I'm excited to see what they've got, and I hope that you have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for being here with me, and I will see you next week. Thanks. Bye.